Okay. Go ahead and pull those up.
Sure. I'll pull that up and we'll get started. Hope everybody is doing well. Thank you all. Can you see my screen, Dana?
We can. It looks gorgeous.
Outstanding, outstanding. So thank you all for the opportunity to share a few ideas with you, a few case studies with you. I'm Javon Williams, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications here at the NAACP. And for those of you all who are not familiar with the NAACP, over 116 years fighting on behalf of marginalized communities across this nation. And yeah, I think we're needed more than ever in sort of really divisive times here now. But what I wanted to speak to specifically, which is almost incredibly timely to this point, is with regards to, and it's just back a little background to the organization itself. But even at 116 years, I'm glad Dana sort of lifted this up in the conversation with Candace, is that no matter how old or young you are within your fundraising space, or from a creative standpoint, there's always an opportunity to try something anew and figure out how to go about reimagining yourself. And if you can imagine, as an organization as established as the NAACP has been for that long a period of time, it would be easy to sort of rest on your laurels and say we've got this all figured out. We've been around for that long. We've got a long legacy. But I don't want to be remembered in a history book. I want to be remembered for what we're doing for the future of organization and the communities that we serve in many cases as well. And so we had to challenge ourselves. And so in the end of last year, we were challenged by our leadership to come up with a new methodology and how we could go about really garnering a new audience within our monthly sustainer program itself. We had a pretty large and vast monthly sustainer program, but how were we going to be creative and how we were able to go after new audiences and making the organization that much more appealing and more appetizing to a audience in a way that we hadn't been in previous instances. And so we challenged ourselves to do something that even at a 116 years of being around had never done before. The NAACP put together a DRTV commercial. It seems like, for the organization's been around that long, you would say to yourself, why wouldn't you already have one? But going through this process over the last, I'd say, 6 months or so, our commercial has only been running since I believe November of last year. You learn that there are a lot of pieces in this that you don't really understand until you kind of dive head first into it as well. And so us working alongside fantastic organizations like We Are More out here in Atlanta, Maryland, helped us immensely in learning how we wanted to show up and where we wanted to show up on behalf of the organization itself. I'll play this 30-second clip. Hopefully it plays for you. It worked out well when we did it in the freeze.
Oh, don't see it on my end.
Oh no.
I see your screen share. Is it a separate screen?
Oh, 1 second.
Still
There we
denied
go.
to
There
two.
you go.
Did it
The
switch?
Yep.
NAACP can't do
All right, I'll
anything.
start it over. There you
No
go.
matter who you are, where you live, or what you believe, there are things we all have in common. For Black Americans and for all people, what matters most is family, community, and a chance to thrive. The NAACP has been on the front lines for over 100 years, fighting for rights still denied to too many. The NAACP can't do any of this important work without one important person, you. So please call or go online to keepadvancing.org.
I share that with you all, and hopefully I can switch back to my other guy here. There we go. I'm back onto the other one. All right. You all can see my screen again?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so I share that with you all just as a framework. That commercial itself, it's a shorter version of the one that we were able to run, or have been running. We had about one that was running about a minute or so. That was the commercial that ran just this past weekend during the 56th annual NAACP Image Awards on BET CBS as well. And so we were able to even expand our audience that much more with being able to showcase the organization to a larger, broader audience. But from a measurable standpoint, we were piloting something that we had never done before, as I made mention to. And so we wanted to measure how we would show up appropriately for the organization. So some of the things that we were considering when we were going through this pilot itself is the program going to generate interest through phone search and web traffic itself? Our call center was one of the major features within this as well. We wanted people to be able to call in and be able to become a monthly sustainer of the organization or to make donations themselves. and then the utilization of search ads, donations, etc. from that standpoint, so that we could show up in the places that we know from a digital standpoint would be appetizing and also very familiar to how we are engaged in many cases as well. The other part of this as well are the creators performing. While we wanted to go into a space that we had not, hadn't been previously, we wanted it to be authentic to who the organization has been. We've done a tremendous job over the last 6 years that I've been with the organization at really building an authentic brand on behalf of the NAACP. We did not want to create something that did not look like what they would be seeing from us from a digital standpoint, email communications, etc. And so we worked very, very closely with our partners to make sure that there was an authentic look and feel into how our graphics and things of that sort showed up. And then also from a cost measurable standpoint, working very closely with our company here in Maryland Moore, is the cost associated with it. The cost that we were told is that it was going to cost approximately is the cost to acquire a monthly donor below the goal of $500 to acquire. So that's how much it was. We were hearing it was going to cost per donor in order to transition them over to the point that it was going to make us money as an organization. Going into television, letting you all know this right now, it is a long game. You're not diving into making commercials and you're supposed to see the benefit of it in its immediacy. This is a long game. And so we also had to look ourselves in the mirror and say, are we willing to stick around and do this so we see the benefits of it long term? And then lastly, are the areas of improvement attainable and sustainable? Can we actually do this long term with the hopes of seeing the revenue generation that we were hoping in the long term sustainability of the organization? And so we had a couple different treatments that we went through as well. I'm glad that Candace said this during her presentation as well, is pulling in the organization itself, key stakeholders from across the entire organization to make sure that everyone, one, is aware of what success looks like on behalf of what we're trying to achieve. But then also we were able to do a tremendous amount of testing to ensure that the messaging that we were trying to push out reverberated. So we did a lot of message testing, you all, before we actually went into any of this production. We wanted to make sure that the words that we were using were going to matter to the audience that we were trying to sustain. We wanted to make sure that the color treatments, different things of that sort, all of these other things that sort of we kind of take for granted that are sort of, almost cognitive in some respects. These are all the things that we learned along the way. So like I said, even at 116 years old, we had to learn a lot of these things because this was our first turn at this in many respects as well. So neuroscience and testing and message testing, some of these things were the first time the organization itself had an opportunity to do so. And so we were able to test 3 different spots here. You saw one of them today with what matters most, but we also had one with I'm All In and The Future Is You that we were able to test along the side to see whether or not those things were able to sustain and they were able to get measurable results. And then we also had a tremendous different amount of mix. Now, what we learned also as well from a DRTV standpoint, if we're trying to build monthly sustainers for our audience in particular, we had to go to traditional television for the purposes of this. We had other efforts that were focused on digital advertisement itself. That was for, the kids in college who don't have money they don't want to give at that rate. They can't necessarily sustain at the level that we necessarily want them to. So we had a different digital campaign that we were focused around them. But specifically for the DRTV media campaign, we wanted to broaden our audience. And so we focused on an audience, a 50 plus audience in particular. And these were the targeted audiences that we went after in order to make that sustainable with the help of more. To date, we've run the spot over 4,000 times across 26 networks, and that's generated over 166 million household impressions, which is fantastic in many respects. The larger networks are more expensive, but generate the donor volume. So that's something else to consider. MSNBCs, those organizations, those networks like that, those are going to cost you more money. What we were able to do with the partnership that we were able to foster as well, because as I said, we weren't doing this. This was the first time we were taking this dance, is in many cases, our president and CEO or some of our principals here within the organization, we were trying to line up certain things where if President Johnson, our president and CEO of the NAACP, was going to be on MSNBC, how can we potentially line up where a spot may run either before or after him speaking and doing an interview there as well? So there's some synergy from their side as well. It's not always perfect. It doesn't always work out that way. But if there's opportunities for us to align some of the messaging that we're getting from our principals, along with the commercial advertisement that we're running, it's a great opportunity for us to build upon the strategy that we're doing in many cases as well. And so we saw a tremendous amount of success from that along the way. And so then we also did some work around paid search as well. Looking at some of the keywords as well that made sense, that generated the sort of the notoriety that we're looking alongside those as well. The versions of our organization's name. NAACP is not NAACP LDF. Some people get that very, very mixed up. But the Legal Defense Fund is not the same organization as the NAACP. We have to make sure that we're clearly defining those two things, because in some cases, LDF may be benefiting from getting NAACP money and vice versa. And so how do we make sure that those who are intending to engage with us via their search themselves are getting directly to us? And that was fostered a lot through our search engine optimization itself. And so we spent a lot of time with our DRTV keywords to ensure that any of those efforts were going to take them directly to where we wanted them to go, for the purposes of ensuring that they got to the information and they could make an informed decision about how they wanted to be a monthly sustainer within the organization itself. Total performance. Now, this is a very, very small snapshot itself, because like I said, we had a tremendous monthly sustainer program with a tremendous development team that we're working on, but it's in this small window of time. The media spend that we fostered over this period of time was just over $700,000 itself. We received over 55,000 calls and web visits during this time frame itself. We had 3,000 just over 3,000 one-time donors. And we had over 1,200 monthly donors who were gained just in this window of time. This is in addition to what we already have. But the number that we focus on is right here, the total revenue. Now, remember, I told you at the onset that it was going to cost us roughly $500 to be able to generate any sort of revenue as a result of this. As a result of how we were able to perform during the climate, when we were able to release this, the net cost was actually substantially less than we expected in this period of time. We went out at the right time. We leveraged the opportunity to do so right around the election cycle itself. And so we took advantage of the opportunity of the political climate to let people know that no matter what side of the aisles you're standing on, we're here to fight on behalf of the Black community, we're here to fight on behalf of a marginalized community. And the results came in very, very quickly from us even just running the pilot itself. And what we learned from that is this is something that we want to continue to invest in. I was just in New York with our board probably 2 weeks ago with our team from Moore, and then also with our marketing communications team. And we're going to reinvest into doing additional advertisements all throughout 2025 because of the results that we saw in this small window of time that we saw itself. It's going to take money for us to be able to do it. And it took a tremendous amount of work on the upfront for us to be able to position ourselves to be able to do this. But the return on the investment was so substantial in such a small period of time that it would be negligent on behalf of the organization if we didn't further invest in putting more spots in place and taking advantage of what we've been able to garner in real time. And so this is just a snapshot of some of the program reach across the country. These are where the donations came in over that period of time themselves. A lot of East Coast donations and stuff, a lot going on in California as well. But this is just a small snapshot as to some of the donations that we saw over that period of time and where they were placed and where they come from. So that would also indicate where we may potentially be looking to foster some of our network commitments itself, where we're investing dollars and where we're investing some of the commercial advertisements as we go forward. And so I have some identified findings for you all. Capitalizing on the current climate. We took advantage of the opportunity. As I may mention, we launched this right before Election Day. So the pilot was incredibly successful, surpassing the goals, likely due to, as I may mention, to the political climate. I have a misspell in there. I apologize. And the year-end giving. Few other organizations were seeing this level of success this early. We did not expect to see a return on the investment this early in our investment itself. And so we want to take advantage of this while the opportunity, there's going to be ebbs and flows in this in many respects, but we want to take advantage of it in real time. And the current investment, we thought we're going to be able to recoup in about 6 months or less. As I may mention to you, we're seeing much more success in what we were able to garner. And so we went right back to our board and we said, we got to invest immediately. And they saw the success of it in real time. And they gave us the thumbs up. And so we're excited about in 2025, additionally investing alongside what we've already seen. And hopefully these numbers continue to grow up and we continue to grow our monthly sustainer base with a lot of help from a lot of important people to make this real for us.
Let's go. That's incredible. I mean, can we just give a huge round of applause for both of these panelists Questions are flying in. I have a few, and then I'm gonna jump in the comments too. I saw the $19 a month,
Mhm.
and then in the ad, I think it's 63 cents a day.
Yes.
Okay. Was there a specific reason for picking 19?
Yes, yes. We learned from testing itself is that anything above $20 starts to make people feel really weird about it. I had no idea that this was such a thing, but with $19 a month, 19.99 was a threshold, and we learned from testing that anything above that, people start feeling funny about it. And so as weird as it sounded, I've always kind of joked about it, but $19 a month was kind of like, yeah, okay, sure, no problem. And then when you, to your point about the 63 cents, well, when you break it down and make it sound that simple, it's
Right.
like 63 cents. But what's 63 cents? You probably got that in your, your dash, in your, your ashtray
Right.
somewhere in your car, right?
That's
So
right.
it just made it simpler for people.
Did that end up being true in what you saw as your average monthly gift?
Actually, a lot more people for monthly givers gave a lot more as a result of it, because I mean the 63 cents, and I guess in their mind they probably felt like, well, I could do better than that, right? Or maybe I'm giving $1.
That's
You
such
know,
an interesting
mhm,
psychology twist.
absolutely, absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, so there's a couple of questions that popped up here. Ashley was asking about, would love to know your future retention plans for re-engagement of donors or initial interest from potential donors.
Yeah. So what we do is we lock them into. I like to make sure that we're not just having this. We kind of go through this ebb and flow of like, okay, we got your money. That's great. I want them to kind of take this journey with me. And so what we also do is engage with our donors around areas of interest itself. The organization is vast in the areas of focus themselves. And so we also question them around what are some of the areas that you feel very, very interested in, so that you're getting more exclusive commentary and communications from the organization. We also, alongside that donation that they make, they get merchandise from the NAACP as well. So they got we all in t-shirts as well, so they can make good on their donations in real time as well. We just want to make sure that their experience is customized based off of their area of interest, and so we're working very closely with our development team to ensure that if I show a particular interest in education, that I'm focusing my messaging to that particular donor around those things as well. It's not to say that they won't get other messages, but I want to make sure that it feels customized and like we've heard them as far as from a retention standpoint.
It sounds very familiar for what we were just talking about in the personalization session that was on the main stage right beforehand. I think that's so important that they're receiving comms that are relevant to their interests, especially with organizations that are so large that have many, 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 many programs. Carol asked a question about great return on ad spend, ROAS. How did you calculate the return on ad spend? Was it donation amount versus cost, or did you multiply the donation amount by 12 months, years? How are you configuring?
We worked with our group at Moore based on their experience. They've been doing this for forever, and quite frankly, I dropped their information in the chat as well. We are not able to do what we just did without their help. We had we have nothing. We didn't know anything about this space. We didn't know anything about the commercial offering. We didn't even know how to get into this space without working alongside them. And so they helped guide us very much so as to what the cost would be associated with as well, based off a 12-month window itself. And so they sort of guided us through this process very much so as it pertains to how we would, where we could potentially look into see the break where we start seeing revenue. They were the ones who were guiding us in terms of, what that cost would look like based on what we were making the level of investment. And so I'm sure they were extremely happy to share those numbers with us when we started to see sort of the influx of revenue generation that we were able to garner in just that small quarter. But partner with people who know this better than you do. You don't try to figure this stuff out by yourself if you don't have to.
That's right. Amazing. We are already out of time. I have like way more questions over here, but this wraps up this case study session. Please reach out to Trevon. Please reach out to Candace with additional questions on LinkedIn. Huge thank you for bringing your expertise and experience to this session. Everyone, we have a 5-minute break until 2:45. You technically have 4 minutes now. Quick stretch. Join us back on the main stage for the rest of the programming and continue to connect with each other. You can go into networking, and I'll see you back over on the main stage. See everybody soon. Thank you again to both of you. Appreciate it.